Please. Yeah, hi everyone. Great to see you all. Just a quick introduction, first of all, to me and Rob on the ends. We are both partners at Balderton Capital. For anyone who doesn't know who we are a London-based European venture capital firm. We've been around for about 18 years now. We've invested in about 200 European startups in that time. We have about 60 companies in our active portfolio today, all over Europe, obviously in the UK, but also in Germany, also in France, all over the Nordics and Southern Europe as well. And we invest across anything in the sort of software or computer technology world, so including some hardware companies, but primarily software, consumer and enterprise, so it's sort of full range thing. The most interesting thing about our firm is that we focus only on European founders and startups, and we also focus primarily at Series A. So 90% of our first investments happen at Series A, but then we stick with the company from that point on. And as a result, one of the interesting things that we live through is the kind of growth of these companies, and usually the globalization of these companies, right? So most of the companies that we invest in when we invest, they're in one country and are quite focused usually on that one country. And then over the time that we're involved, they tend to go through the rest of the world, including in particular to the US. That's usually the market that matters the most from a customer perspective, a funding perspective, and also an employee perspective. So that's the topic that we'd like to focus on today is how do you build these global companies, even if you start here, right here in Berlin. And to do that, we've brought two of our CEOs with us, Sascha and Jens, who will introduce themselves in a moment. But the interesting thing about Sascha and Jens is that they both founded and have built companies that are today global. Both are way beyond the startup stage. They'll tell you more about it, but they've both raised tens of millions of dollars, and they both have hundreds of employees. But again, they started right here in Berlin in quite different markets. So over to you guys, maybe a quick intro.
Sure, yeah. So I'm Sascha, the CEO and co-founder of Contentful, which I founded about 5 to 6 years ago. What is Contentful? It's really a B2B company. So what we do is we provide content infrastructure that allows larger enterprises to manage and distribute content at scale. So everybody here talked about software eating the world, and you all want to create digital products, and we basically give an underlying infrastructure to deliver all of that content for all parts of the customer journey.
Cool. And Jens?
Yeah, we are a mobile game company. So when most people think of games, they think of gamers. Our target audience is not what you typically imagine to be a gamer. So 80% of them are female, many of them are 40 and older. Actually, over a quarter of them is 55 plus. We have 200 people here in Berlin. Everybody's in Berlin. And what we do is story-driven casual games. So all of our games have characters and stories, almost like movies or TV shows. And yeah, we're growing very nicely. Revenue is now more than a third higher than it was last year this time. And we're very happy about this very fast and nice niche in the market.
Okay. So let's focus in on this global question, right? So just before backstage, we were discussing this, and both of you now have 50% or more of your revenue coming from the US, right? So it's the biggest market for both of you from a revenue perspective. So maybe Sascha, start with you first. Quite early on, you decided to move to America. You raised your last 2 rounds in the US. You built a team there. Why did you do that? What was that journey like?
Yeah, I mean, I tried to go to the Bay Area already earlier, but the issue was getting a visa. So in the end, I decided to start the company in Germany instead. So we built all of the software here in Berlin, but early on figured out that most of our revenue was coming from the US and most of the customers. And initially, when we just had a small sales team, it was easy to jump on phone calls with US customers in evenings, but at one point it turned out to be well, dear customer, we need to talk, but we can only talk like July 4th or July 5th. Yep. Because the evenings of our employees and of our sales team were way too busy. And that's why we have really seen if we want to be even more successful in the US, we should be having a local presence to be close to our customers. And the other part has been, as a B2B company, there isn't really a lot of knowledge in Berlin or in Europe on how to scale these companies. And that is something that we also wanted to get on board and that we definitely found also in our office in San Francisco.
Yeah.
Very cool. We did the exact opposite. We did the exact opposite. So we have no office in the US. We have 0 employees in the US. But we have more than half of our revenue in America. So we have everybody in the same office, in the same building. It's 40 different nations. in one building here in Berlin. And that's really, really important to me because this mobile games market is so brutal, so hard, it's so difficult to compete that you really need to be better than your competitors. And for us, communication and exchange of information between the different teams is so crucial. And even though modern forms of communication have made it easier, still, I think the best way to exchange ideas and the best way to exchange information is face-to-face and in person, when people can just get together in one room and talk to each other.
I think that's been a huge advantage for you in sort of starting as a Facebook games developer and then becoming mobile, and now the focus on narrative-driven. But what has been the downside for you? I mean, do you have a challenge in understanding the American market deeply or understanding the American consumer?
Yes, yeah. So when we started, we were clearly good in Europe and had no presence in the US. Our revenue share in the US was 10% or a little bit around that time. And a few years ago, we said, okay, we have to make it there, because then we can make it anywhere, not just in New York, but in the whole United States. Yeah. And we really, really made it a strategic focus for about 2 years to win in the US. So we hired a number of Americans. Berlin is good for that because a lot of them are willing to come over and spend some time here. Has actually become easier in the last 1.5 years due to some political changes in the US and a certain desire to move to other countries. And so therefore, our biggest nationality after Germans is Americans. But we also see that in the form of games, if you get the best people from all over the world and they work closely together, you build products that work globally. Instead of a group of Germans building a game for Germany or a group of Americans building a game just for Americans. And therefore, it has worked really well for us. There are challenges, obviously. But it took a few years to overcome that, but now I think the benefits are bigger than the negatives.
What does it take to convince an American to move to Berlin? What's the biggest challenge?
I think so there are obviously some Americans who are not open to leave the country, right? And with them, you have no chance. But there are quite a few who are open to move. And then I think it was really about, so we always fly them over, even if it's just for the interview, right? So even if somebody's based in San Francisco, we pay the flight, we pay the hotel to fly them over. And once they get to know the city and once they get to know the company, that breaks the ice and starts to convince them. So I had people in an interview who told me, after the interview day, oh, this is like the mini United Nations, because they had the interview with 10 people and it was like from 9 different countries. And I think that helps a lot.
And Sascha, you have your entire American office in Berlin right now, you were saying.
Yes, we do. So what we, of course, try to do is get everybody together. So we have about 150 employees in Berlin and 50 in San Francisco. And the company is still small enough that we can fly everybody from San Francisco to Berlin. And that's what just happened basically this week. So we have everybody in the Berlin office. And we're actually heading to a company-wide offsite starting tomorrow and on Friday to really build this collaboration between the two offices as well.
Yeah, I think that's really important. I remember at my past company where I was just an employee, when it was really they over there, right? We had the American office and the Berlin office, and there was no collaboration, no trust. So I think what you're doing there is absolutely key. So to build this personal trust so people can work together well.
Yeah. So this is a question I'd like to ask to both of you. We had our CEO offsite a few weeks ago, as you know, and we brought together about 50 of our CEOs, spent 2 days together. The single most popular session that we ran was we had a world expert come in and talk to us about culture differences and how different cultures approach all kinds of things differently, including, of course, the reality of work and how you communicate, and how that can create unexpected clashes between Americans, Germans, Brits, French people, people from India, people from China and Japan, and so on. So again, given that you both have highly diverse Berlin teams, right? Both of you have lots of nationalities in your Berlin teams. You also have this American angle in your case, Sascha. Do you find that culture thing, and like, what are the challenges that throws up?
Do you want to start?
Yeah, I can. On our end, I mean, first of all, the office in Germany for us is very diverse as well. So probably we only have 20% Germans or so. Everybody else is from the rest of the world. So it's very diverse already. We do have some of these cultural training programs, but I would say between our two offices, it's not so much about US versus Germany. It's more about business kind of personalities versus engineering kind of personalities. So the business teams, they always want to have everything done right away, tomorrow, versus, of course, the engineering-centric people, which are rather saying, well, we want to do it right, we want to think about that carefully and so forth, and not go in the wrong direction. And I think that's the much bigger tension, at least for us at our current stage, than the tension between the US culture and the German culture.
Right. So, and that would be the case even if you were an entirely German-based or entirely Bay Area-based company, basically, right?
Yeah,
you still have that same sales versus engineering culture.
The two offices maybe amplify that a little bit, because we only have engineering and product and design in the Berlin office, and the San Francisco office is really sales, marketing, and customer success.
Cool.
Yeah. I mean, I remember that talk from Aaron Meyer at your CEO offsite. And by the way, to the startups in the room, if you have Balderton as an investor, you can attend every 2 years the most fancy CEO offsite I can imagine in the best hotel.
It's also very educational and valuable. It's not just fancy.
It's really, it was work. It was hard work at this hotel. No, but Aaron Meyer, who gave the speech, the talk really resonated with me. And she does this training for expats, for people who move from one country to the other. And at the end, she asked this question of what combination of countries is the most difficult. So nation A goes to nation B, and you would think whatever, maybe a German going to China or a French going to wherever. But actually, it was between America and the United Kingdom, which was very surprising. And she said the reason for that is because people from those two countries think they are so similar, and therefore they are not open in their mind to adapt. And I think that's the key why it works for us. The team for us is so international. It's 40 different nations in one building that everybody comes in with the mindset of, oh, everybody has a different culture here. And everybody's open. And everybody is open to cultural differences. And if somebody says something, they don't get mad. They say, oh, well, maybe that's because of a cultural difference. So it's really about being open as an employee. And I think the environment we have, because it's so diverse, creates that open mind automatically. And it's much more difficult if you have whatever, just a few people as part of the team. If it's so many nations, it's much easier.
Right, because you all have to leave those issues by the door, right?
You have to force yourself.
Fantastic. I think we're out of time, so thank you very much, guys, for that really quick session. We'll try and share on Twitter maybe a link to Erin's talk so that if any of you are interested in this cultural challenge, we can maybe follow up on that as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.